Hey guys, Tyler here. So this is something I thought would be kind of fun to do. We both, Gables and I, did our top 10 list for games of the year, and I think we did a really good job this past year, I guess, now 2020 and we're in 2021 now. Happy New Year's, by the way. Um, but I thought we were pretty precise on how we spent our time on the other games, but we both really took a deep dive in why the number ones were our number ones for the year of 2020. And I thought we did a really good job, and I figured for maybe people that don't want to sit down and listen to nearly 2 hours of podcast about our personal top 10 list, but maybe want to, hear about why this game was your number one, and we can spend a good chunk of time and spoil alerts for these games, especially for mine here for my number one, Last of Us Part 2. But I already posted Gable's part for Persona 5 Royal, his number one, and I thought it'd be fun to post my part where I'd go real deep dive into Last of Us Part 2 and why it's my number one. And hope you guys enjoy this. But I did really fast want to run through my top 10 list before I got to that part. I did the same thing for Gables, so if you want to go listen to Gables' part, do that, please. And then also give us a big thumbs up or 5 stars, whatever. But my number 10 was Streets of Rage 4. My number 9 was Resident Evil 3. Number 8 was Doom Eternal. Number 7 was Ghost of Tsushima. Number 6 was Battletoads. Number 5 was Hades. Number 4 was Miles Morales, sorry. Number 3, A Short Hike. Number 2, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. And number 1, Last of Us Part 2. Really hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know if you did, please. And thank you guys so much for listening. And we'll be back shortly with a normal episode. Love you guys. Bye. Moving on to my number one. It's the last great game that will ever be put out. Fast and Furious Crossroads. Let's talk about it, Gables. No. Joking. Obviously, it's Last of Us Part 2 is my number one game of 2020. To me, personally, this is the greatest story ever told in video games. I think maybe possibly all of entertainment. Where for me, like full spoiler for this game at this point. I mean, it's the end of the year. This game has been out. The story for this game has been out since April. The game came out in June. Like the anger that Ellie felt and that revenge tour that she was basically going on throughout the first half of that game. I felt those emotions. Like I was all aboard that. Like I was angry and I was pissed, and I was like, for Abby and her gang of friends all killing Joel, and it's just like I wanted to murder every single one of them, and I took joy in killing them all at that point. And it's just like I think the way they did the twist was great. Like, and I admit once I got to Abby, like you get to that part, we get to the basically in the first half with Ellie, and it's like you go through day 1, day 2, day 3 Seattle, and it's like you get to like that mid we get to the switch, and it's like day 1 Seattle, and you're like, huh? And like, okay, like, oh, I'm playing this Abby now, okay, whatever. And it's like you think you're just gonna like you're gonna like fly through that part. Like I'm thinking I'm almost done with the game at that point, and then to realize, oh no, I'm playing this whole game again from her perspective. And I remember I'm like, I know what you're doing, and I'm not on board. I'm not gonna. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to walk a mile in Abby's shoe and see what she's going through, and like I'm like, it's not gonna work. And it's just like I remember where it clicked for me, where it's like I was slowly like, okay, like my anger for her, my hatred was fading. And I remember what broke for me was like there's a part in I think it's in day 2 in Seattle with Abby where you have to cross this bridge at the top of like these like 2 towers basically, and like she's like, she's jacked, fucking killing people with their bare hands, this whole time, never shows fear. And finally, for the first time, like you see her as like, as a person, as a character, you see like her emotions other than just anger and like, hatred. And it's like, you see, she's like scared for her life. She's like deathly afraid of heights. And it's like, you're climbing across this like makeshift bridge that what's the bad guys in the game that whistle? Seraphites, yeah. When they build this bridge and it's just like rinky dink and it's barely holding on, and like you're going across it with Lev, and it's just like her going through that. You're going through the motion too, especially for me. Like I'm also scared of heights. Like I hate heights. Like I won't even climb ladders, and it's like I'm fucking scared, and I'm just moving her forward, and it's just like you're going through those emotions with her, and you see, and like I think it's where it's like that's where it changed for me, where it's like, and you get like, okay, I like Abby, like okay, I'm on board. It's like going through that whole part where it's like, Ellie is on this path, going on this revenge tour, and like killing everybody that killed Joel, and it's like Abby, like who is basically dedicated her whole life of getting revenge, and that was her life, and destroyed, pretty much never really had a real these people were friends, but they were, she didn't really have a real emotional connection with these people, she kind of burned bridges away with them, where like they didn't click. There was they just did not mesh well, a lot of fighting and anger, because she just was so dedicated to Joel killed her dad, so now she wants, I'm going to kill him, and then basically Abby killed Ellie's dad, and it's just like going through this all right, now she spent her whole childhood and adult life on this quest for revenge and got it, and now she's dealing with the fact where it's like, what now? Like I've dedicated my entire life to this, and it's like, how do I deal with that and move on? And going through not agreeing with the wolves and the group she's in, and going through and meeting you have the Seraphites, and you have they're these bad people, and they are bad people, but she meets Lev, and it's totally where she's transgender, and she's outcasted, and they want to kill her because she's identifies as someone else, and it's against their ways, and it's just this whole story where it's you have these preconceived notions about people, and it's just how walking a mile, like I said, walking a mile in their shoe, and spending time with them, it's no, they're not who you think they are, and it's no, I totally get that. I understand where Ellie's coming from. I understand where I definitely understood that first half where Ellie's coming from. I felt that same way, and but then it's as you see, it's Joel, now the whole part of Last of Us Part 1, it's it really plays off of that, where obviously as it should, where it's Joel talked about, he's not a good person. He did a lot of shitty things. He did a lot of bad things, and it's that came back to bite him, and that was you can't make Part 2 without dealing with the ramifications of the end of Part 1. And I had a lot of problems at first, where it's I wanted that adventure of Joel and Ellie, and I was fucking crushed when I realized this isn't the Joel and Ellie adventure that I was looking forward to. I wasn't getting that. But just how the whole thing is set up, the whole narrative, with the Pearl Jam song Future Days, and it's at the beginning when Joel plays on the guitar, if the Future Days song, it's if I were to ever lose you, I truly lose myself, and that's the whole narrative thread to this whole game, where it's everything is built on that one line. It's every time Ellie will find a guitar in the game as you're going through, and when she's by herself, she can't finish the chord, she can't finish that part, because she'll have flashbacks to going back to that kind of fills in the gaps of what happened to them in between Part 1 and 2. And it's all these great moments they had together of building on that family daughter or the father daughter relationship, and then why they didn't talk anymore, what happened, why aren't they, what happened to the relationship, why are they, for years they stopped talking. And it's literally the day before he died, after years of not talking, is the day that Ellie's I want to try again with you, and want to have a you're essentially my dad, I want to have that that relationship back with you in my life. And it's when you, at the end of the game, when you realize the last time they talked was them fixing their their relationship and trying to get back to where they were. And it's like after years of not talking, it's just crushing because you don't realize that throughout the game. You don't realize like you know, like you learn in the game, like, okay, they had a falling out, but you just thought that like, they fixed it, they're fine now. But it's like, no, they come to find out for years they just didn't talk, or they would barely speak to each other or look at each other because Ellie was so mad at him. And it's like now it's like literally the night before, it's like she tries to make amends, and it's crushing. And then like the end of the game, after you play through Abby, and like you get, she escapes all this, and then like she gets captured, and then it cuts back, and so you have this false ending with Ellie and her girlfriend, and she has the kid with what's his name, Jesse, I want to say, yeah, and now they're living on this beautiful farm. They're living. It's like they have the fence. It's just everything that you can want for her. It's like you're so happy for her. It's like, oh my God, she's like, she made it. She got out. Jesse, he's gone. It's sad, but they're like living this, the picture perfect life where it's like, they have the kid, some time has passed, that they're together, but she can't let it go. She can't let the fact that like Abby's still out there go. And like they had that big fight, before all that, and it's kind of a 1 and 2, and Abby almost kills her, Ellie almost kills her, then Abby almost kills her, and then it's like basically Abby's like, could have killed her, and then she's like, if I ever see your face again, you're fucking dead, and lets her live. And then like Ellie can't let it go, and she goes back to try to find Abby and kill her, and it's like she ends up finding Abby hung up after she's been captured and basically been a slave for this group of people for months at this point, and she's just skin and bones. She went from being jacked to just, literally bones at this point, and having that final fight, losing her 2 of her fingers, and like she has a chance to kill Abby, and she just can't do it, and deal with all that. It's like me like sitting there in that fight where you're fighting as Ellie trying to kill Abby. It's like it's like a whole counterpoint where in the first fight you're playing as Abby trying to kill Ellie, and now you're vice versa, where it's like you don't want to do these things but you're doing them. And it's just like, I remember like at one point where you're drowning Abby, and like you had to like keep pressing I think the square button. It's like I just let go of the button. I'm like, I don't know if this is a choice or not, so I just want to see what happens. And like Abby kills you, and start the whole like, oh, okay, I don't have a choice, I have to do this. And it's like you do it. It's like it puts you in a feeling where like games don't do that to you, where it's like where it's like you have option B or option A, option B, or option maybe even option C. Or it's like this game where it's like it's gonna put you in uncomfortable things. Like they build these characters that you end up loving, and now they're fighting and like killing each other. And it's like you don't want to do it, but they're making you do it. Like you're definitely on a path of like, this is what you're doing, and it's just the story, and like we're telling you the story, which I like better. I would much rather have this than the option to pick one or the other. And then just the end of the game where she goes back to the farm after leaving, and she lost her 2 fingers, and her girlfriend and the kid are gone, and she picks up the last part. She picks up the guitar, and she goes to play the note, if I were to lose you, I truly lose myself. And because she lost her finger, she can't play the note. And that's where it ends. And it just completely ripped my fucking heart out, where it's just like, like I said, that line is the narrative thread to this whole story, but it's like, really is like, Joel saying it to her, thinking like, if I were to ever lose Ellie, like I lose like basically like when he lost his daughter, he lost himself until basically Ellie came around. And, now it's like Ellie actually lost Joel, and she lost herself. And like that whole, thread, that everything way came together. I remember like, talking to my girlfriend at the time, now ex, and I was telling her about it, and she's like, she kept asking me, "Are you having fun with this game?" And I was just like, because she only saw me play with bits and pieces of it, and like, I'm not having fun, but it's just like I'm utterly addicted to this game, and I want to know more about the story. And just like I remember after after I beat the game, and I was telling her about that ending, and she maybe watched me play a grand total of 3-4 hours of this 25-hour game, and she didn't see any of the last half of that game. She's pretty much everything she saw was she saw the first little bit up to like right before Joel died and a little bit of Ellie's part, and I explained the whole story to her, and I was going through it, and I told her the end, that part about she can't play the guitar, and by the time I was done telling the story, she was crying in tears. Like, that's how I'm like, just me giving her like the 5-minute synopsis of the story, like broke her. And it's just like going through this whole 20+ hour campaign. It's like Last of Us Part 1 was just a constant sense of dread I talked about. It's a game I didn't know I ever wanted to play again, because it was just everything about that game was just dreadful, and I wasn't enjoying it, but I just, the story was great, the characters were great. It was that same thing where it's like I didn't want to put it down, but I didn't want to. I was so, every scene had me nervous. Like, I remember thinking about the time, talking about the time where it's like, it reminded me of like watching like Game of Thrones back in its heyday, where it's like at any moment in time they could just kill off a major character, like in any scene, like literally, and they can kill several main characters that they've built the show around for years, and like, we'll just make 5 new characters and that'll be just as good. And it's like, I mean, every scene a character I loved would be in, I'm just like, oh, like, yes, they're on the screen, I love this character, but oh my god, they can die at like any moment. And that's how I felt about this game, where I was like, at any moment, like, any character can die. And yeah, this game is, to me, like, one of, like I said, I think it's the greatest story ever told in games. There's definitely more fun games out there. There's definitely better gameplay games out there, but I think as a package in itself, as a story, as a amalgamation of characters, in like the gameplay, I mean, I think it's good. It's really, really good. But I mean, probably to me, it's one of the greatest games of all time I've ever played. And to me, it's like, I have like PTSD now every time I hear Pearl Jam because of this fucking game. Like, no joke. Every time it's not even just Future Days. Fucking Even Flow can come on, and I'm just like, oh fuck. Like, I just have like flashbacks of playing through this.
You can't listen to Pearl Jam without feeling depressed.
Yeah, and it's just like, god damn it. I gotta just pull over now. And like, I was at work driving in my truck, and fucking Jeremy comes on from Pearl Jam. I'm like, all right, I gotta pull over here and just take a couple minutes here, get my wits about me. All right, like, it's just, I feel like it's like, now I know how my dog feels that whenever like someone rings the doorbell and he just freaks out. That's just me now. Whenever I hear fucking Pearl Jam, it's just like, oh my god, we're all gonna die. That's the way I feel now. My number one, Last was Part 2 with a bullet. It's the greatest game I think of all time, probably. I need to sit down and think about it. We're gonna have to think about it, because we're gonna do a Game of Generation podcast here in the future.
That's fairly true.
But it's like, I think Final Fantasy VII is the most fun game I've played this year, but Last of Us Part 2 is the best game I've ever played, probably. Once I sit down and think about it, right now it's number one. But yeah, that is our top 10 list, Gables and our listeners.